because we had a lot of hard times where we were just like, what are we doing? Because like we're having fun, but sometimes you feel like you're posting to the void, especially for like our first 2 years. I don't even think anybody read anything that we made. We were just posting it. We were just keeping each other entertained. We were really just making stuff for each other.
Hello, fellow Webtoon fans and creators. I'm Audrey, and this is the Webtoon Wave podcast. Today, I have really awesome guests today. I'm so excited to interview them. I've been waiting for this. I have Kit and Kate, the creators of Nevermore and Shiloh on Webtoon. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to get into this and talk about Shiloh and Nevermore and just how you created these amazing comics. I'm just so excited.
Thanks so much. Glad you like them.
I love them. Okay, so let's just get into it. Just give us an introduction to you guys and kind of how you got into the webcomics space.
I'm Kate Flynn. I'm the artist for Nevermore and Shiloh. But I guess it's like the same answer for both of us. I mean, we started posting on like a site that we made first to nobody. And then we started posting to Tapas and got like a small following. Then mirrored online Webtoon at the timeline, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just been from there.
So I'm Kit Trace, or people call me Red also. We had no idea really what we were doing when we got involved. We had just graduated college and had gotten kind of office jobs and hated it. So we were friends at the time. Kate had gone to art school and I had gone to liberal arts college as an English major, not even creative writing, just an English major, literature.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just kind of got together and decided to like work on a project together just to maintain our sanity.
Just having fun.
Yeah, we were just really having fun and didn't really have any plans like for it long term. And then it just kind of grew over the course of like almost a decade, I guess. It took kind of a long time.
Yeah. So you started with Tapas, and you said you got picked up by Webtoon when you were on Canvas, right, with Shiloh?
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting story because we started making comics together in 2012, and that was it's the same series as Shiloh, but it had a different name back then, and it had been rebooted and everything. And we had been doing it for kind of a long time by the time we were reached out to. Was it 2018? 2020? I think it was like 2018 when we were reached out to. And we were reached out to multiple times and we hadn't seen it because it was going to a
Oh no.
And then suddenly we had random people who were claiming to be Webtoon editors pinging us on Twitter, like, check your email. And we were like, who are these crazy people?
Yeah.
For like a couple more days. And finally we were like, fine, we'll go look. We just thought it was crazy. We just like, because we were just doing our own thing. Like we weren't really expecting anything like that. But we ended up like looking, and it was someone who was a new editor at Webtoon and was like, I read your stuff when I was in high school. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Right. No, you read our stuff in high school. So it was like somebody who was like fully out of college and was now an editor for Webtoon, and it made us feel really, really old. But it was
oh no.
fun.
Yeah, that's really exciting. That's also so interesting that they were in high school and they just were like, I wonder if they were like, I'm gonna be an editor and then I'm gonna push for Kit and Kate to get a deal.
It's wild to think back on it because, you know, you always kind of dream when you're working on something like this of like the time that you make it, like someone sees you, the right person sees you, or you get like reached out to by someone, and knowing that we kind of had it in the bag, that we just had to keep going and not stop. Like we just had to like hang around and outlast the clock until the person who was eventually going to get us a deal at Webtoon had the time to finish high school, finish college, and then
Yeah.
So it's like funny because you never know like what direction it's going to come in or when it's going to happen or if it's even already happened. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like the more creators I talk to, I think Courtney Worthit got picked up when she I don't even think she had 1,000 subscribers on Honey Lemon, and then I think the same. Well, Ingrid actually entered the 2018 contest, I believe. So I mean, it can come about in like different ways for sure. Like I have I have a friend, she was posting on Canvas, and then Manta actually reached out to her. So you never know like how opportunities can come in, right? It can just be unexpected, and you know, maybe not the platform you're even currently publishing on. So
yeah, well, we were primarily publishing to Tapas at the time. Like we were just mirroring on Webtoon. We were really bad at updating Webtoon with whatever we had been posting on. Tapas we were pretty good at once a week, but every so often we would just dump a bunch of pages into Webtoon. So we were
Was that your guys' goal in the beginning? Like, were you really wanting to be like full-time comic creators when you started publishing?
I mean, I think it was always like a dream, but I don't know if it was like we were planning our lives around it, because it seemed kind of impossible. But yeah, I mean, I think it was always something that we dreamed of doing. Just, I don't know how realistic that dream always felt. So when it came out of the blue, it's kind of like, what? Like, I just kind of like didn't even believe it. I was like, that's not real.
Yeah.
Like,
we were kind of Delulu, I think, because we
always been Delulu.
we were kind of like in this like folie à deux kind of situation where we were like, no, we're going to do this for a job someday, but also we're kind of not doing any of the things that you need to do to make that happen. Like we were just kind of head down and making it and just expecting it to like work out. And we were definitely like getting people to like new readers and stuff. People were following us, and it was very slow though. It's not, we didn't market ourselves. We didn't network very much. We were like, yeah, no, this is all going to work out for sure. And I mean, I guess it did. So I was about to be like, we were completely delusional, but I'm like, well, I mean, we do it for work now. So I guess we weren't completely delusional, but
99%. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So with the current comic that you guys are creating, Nevermore, that's how I discovered you guys, and I fell in love with it. So how did you conceptualize the idea for Nevermore? Like, what was the spark? What was the idea behind the story?
I think a lot of things.
Yeah. It was like definitely a amalgamation of different concepts.
I think that one thing that's always been true is like I think that we've said this before, like I'm probably repeating your words and my words and whatever, but like we've always I think with Nevermore we really wanted to tell like a love story, but like a kind of epic, sweeping, dark, like gothic love story, but sapphic. So like that was always really important, I think, from the get-go. On top of that, I mean
going off of that too, though, like I feel like there's a lot of sapphic content, like, you know, content with sapphic couples out there that is really aspirational, and like wonderful and beautiful, and like to call it fluffy feels wrong, because
like
it's I'm not saying that it's just fluffy. It is super necessary, and I think it's like lovely, and I love reading it too. I love fluff, but at the same time, like we always noticed, you know, being two women in a sapphic relationship, that we kind of grew up with these sweeping like dramatic love stories, like Phantom of the Opera, Wuthering Heights, like these kind of like really dramatic, you know, not always like perfect fairy tale kind of ending type of romance stories, and we just felt like there wasn't a lot of that for sapphics. It's actually kind of changed a lot lately. Like Arcane is like a good example.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Really good example where it's got we have that stuff now, but when we started, I feel like it wasn't as common. So we were really excited to go into something like that.
Yeah, I love having that spin on a romance in a story. Is it's darker, it's more tumultuous in the beginning, you know, and I love that it's not totally like the romance drives the story. It's these characters are thrust into this world that they're like, okay, we have no idea what's going on. We got to figure out what is happening. And I really admire that about Nevermore, is that it's more unconventional in that aspect.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to write. I know sometimes people are like, get to the kissing. We opened up some like question suggestions for this interview, and that was like, I would say like a solid 20% of the questions.
Yeah.
We're just people asking when they're gonna kiss, and
I
get it, but we can't tell you.
Yeah. It's like, no, we can't reveal it because then we need to keep you vested in the story.
Exactly. But yeah, no, there's a lot of other stuff that we were excited about. I remember being really fixated on this concept of somebody washing up on this kind of very like misty shore with a suitcase handcuffed to their hand and no memories. Like that was just a really cool hook. And I think I think we even had that in our back pocket for a while before we knew like what story it belonged to.
Yeah.
So we were really excited about kind of like just that opener to a story. And then also we were kind of focused on like doing something that was really like self-indulgent to us and something that was really like unique to who we are. So we were thinking like sapphic romance, ghost lore, like ode to horror in general, Edgar Allan Poe, gothic,
emo shit,
emo stuff.
Yeah.
Emo stuff, My Chemical Romance, the whole thing. And I guess what came out of that was Nevermore.
Yeah, I absolutely love how unique the world of Nevermore is and the character designs. Like the entire concept of the story is just so unique and just like this hauntingly beautiful aesthetic. And I'm an artist. I love looking at it. It's like not only do I have an amazing story, I have this eye candy that I can look at while I'm reading it. It's just absolutely beautiful. I just love what you guys have turned it into. So let's get into the world building aspect of Nevermore. What were the things that you were thinking of with the story and also like the art of it?
Yeah. Do you want to go first or should
I mean, I think I don't know, just anywhere you can throw gothic spires, gargoyles, at least visually, like lots of fogs. It's kind of this like limbo. So it's like, I don't know, it's just like creating a limbo world, which is cool. I think going off of like a lot of like afterlife folklore, obviously a lot of inspiration from Poe. Yeah.
Yeah, folkloric, misty, kind of like dark academia vibes. Really, really like those. Yeah, kind of all the same thing. We experimented with kind of different like art styles and things. Like there were times where we were looking at more of like a scratchy ink art style, or like kind of a more like hashing, like cross hashing and stuff like that. But
or like simpler watercolor washes and stuff, which like some of that stuck around. But I think especially like as Nevermore's like gone on, it's it's grown into kind of its own thing too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because one of the inspirations is like German expressionism and like kind of by Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Of course, people kind of talk like Burton-esque and like we grew up on like Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride, all of that stuff.
Love it.
Certainly like one of our inspirations. And then I guess we did a really good job because shortly after we started publishing, Wednesday came out, and Wednesday features Nevermore Academy, and we were like, wow, I guess we're really on the same wavelength as Tim Burton for a moment. So that's pretty flattering. But
yeah.
People think that we're like an offshoot of that, or that we were inspired by that, but Nevermore actually was published before Wednesday ever came out, so I think it was just a weird moment of
coincidental kind of
I don't know how it happened, but I mean all gothic everything like modern is really goes back to Edgar Allan Poe, so it's not really that shocking. But it was kind of a funny thing.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see like the stylistic inspirations from Tim Burton. And I love like the time period choice too. Like it's kind of like it is its own thing almost, but then you get like flashbacks to characters, when they were alive. Like I really love the time period that you guys chose as well. So when you guys were thinking of the story of Nevermore, what was your guys' thought process with those first few episodes of Nevermore? both in like the storytelling aspect and the art aspect of it?
We went through a couple different drafts. I say a couple, I mean like I think our editor almost stopped talking to us at a certain point because oh my gosh, we tried everything. We really changed it up. Like there was a draft where it wasn't so much a suitcase that Lenore was handcuffed to, but a footlocker, and someone was in the footlocker, and that somebody was Annabelle, and she had to like pull them both up the hill. That was weird. That was kind of a weird. In that one, Lenore was in a wedding gown for some reason. We had like a lot of different.
Wow.
We had a lot of different drafts. A lot of different drafts, and even the first episode originally was supposed to be the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But like we kind of needed to get to the hook of like, this is a school, you're dead, there are ghosts, like ghost forms and stuff. Like we can, like it's almost something that I think that we might revisit if we ever get a chance to like print Nevermore, because there's like just so much fun stuff that could happen on the way to the school, but we just didn't have time before. The way that Webtoon launches, like the first 3 episodes, you kind of have to get like your main idea into the first 3. So we kind of rushed it a little bit. But yeah, there was even a really early draft where the very first thing you see is Lenore burning down her house, which is something that is not revealed to the reader until like halfway through season 1 now. So yeah, a lot of things kind of change just while you're feeling it out and trying to get the right combination and everything kind of into the right order.
Yeah, and it's definitely difficult when you are limited with that kind of 3 episode idea with Webtoon, is having the hook, like the main hook in those first 3 episodes. So it's definitely hard to kind of work around a story with that limitation. But you guys did it really well.
All the hard work paid off.
Yes.
Yeah. First 3 episodes, like launch episodes on Webtoon, is like make or break time. Like they're so important, and getting so much information like packed into the first 3 or 4, I don't know how they're like, I think some people do it slightly differently, but like getting so much information packed in there, like introducing the leads, endearing you to the leads. Like your dad, this is limbo, there's this school, here's your ghost form. It's like there's a lot to get through, so I'm glad that it didn't feel rushed. I'm glad that like it all worked well, but like they're hard. Like launch episodes are like the hardest thing to do. Like it's near impossible. It took us like 5 months or something just to get those first 3 episodes like squared away. Yeah, we redid them so many times, so I'm glad. But yeah, they're formidable.
Yeah, we even redid them after we had done them. I think that we completed the first 3 episodes and then read them again, and we're like,
yeah, like Annabelle. Yeah, there was a whole completed version where Lenore found Annabelle like in this kind of like nest of thorns, unconscious, kind of like fairy tale-esque. And yeah, that was totally finished, and we're like, we gotta redo this.
It was. I'm not kidding. Our editor was like, "You're doing what?
Like, why not? It's good."
We get that from Webtoon a lot. Like we're always editing episodes like up until kind of like the final hour before they go up. Like even today. So Webtoon, I think, is always like,
yeah.
Can you stop? And we're like, nope. we cannot.
We literally
stop.
can't. I wish we could. We cannot. But yeah, those first 3 they're tough. They're really, really hard.
Yeah. And we were in good shape too, because like we had been doing Shiloh season 2 for a really long time. So we were very much in like the kind of flow state of doing an episode a week. But starting a new series is just so hard. I think it's like such a huge barrier to a lot of people. A lot of people think that they're like not cut out for making webtoons because like they're having a really hard time making their first few episodes. And I'm like, yeah, like everybody does. I don't think
that's easier.
I don't think that that's rare. I think no matter how many times you've done this or how many different projects you started, it's always going to be really hard to start a series.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into creating a webcomic, right? You not only do you have like creating the story, you have to draw it. And it since you guys are a duo, it takes a lot of collaboration between you both to make that happen. And it helps that you're like, you've done it before with Shiloh and you're already used to kind of that flow state. But yeah, like launching a new series, it just takes so much work and brain power.
I think you also like, especially with the like starting something, it's like so easy to second guess every single decision that you make. Where it's like when you're kind of like, you know, like in the flow state, sort of like under the like under the wheels of the train, like you're just going. But like having the time to really like perfect those first 3 episodes, and they need to be perfect. There's so many things that need to be perfect, and like maybe this isn't working, maybe this isn't good enough. What if this doesn't have people? Like, yeah, they're just like a whole different beast than the rest of the updates after that, for sure.
Yeah, we're fiddlers. We're bad. We go in and just, like, fine tune things and sometimes make them worse, and then we have to revert, and then it was like a day of waste.
It was like, why did we do that?
Do you feel like your editor was your editor super involved in the beginning? Or they're just kind of like...
Definitely in the beginning. I think the editors are really quite involved in the beginning. Like she was really, really awesome. Bree's our editor. She's really awesome, like with coming up with the idea and kind of like being able to like bounce ideas off of her. She's also really, really good at trimming the fat. Like she is a big reason why we were able to fit everything into the first 3 episodes.
And episode hooks too.
Episode hooks, yeah.
She was great at episode hooks. So yeah, she was just like a really good sounding board and had like a lot of really good advice, especially for launch and like starting off. Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Huge.
She's definitely good at that.
It's just good to have somebody looking at what you're working on. Like especially when you're like, is this anything? Is this anything? So it's good to just have somebody because like I said, we're always in folie à deux kind of mode where we're like, yeah, it's everything, and then somebody else looks at it and they're like, I don't know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to get that feedback from a third party where this is like what they do for their job, and you know, especially being able to like cut out those things that you don't necessarily need, just for like the sake of workload and storytelling, pacing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you guys were thinking of the story itself, you know, like in most cases it should be you should have like your beginning and end solid and figured out. But how do you figure out the beats in between those, like their major arcs? Like what were you thinking of when you were thinking about the major arcs in the story? Like how do you plan those out?
I mean, so we definitely have the ending of the entire series like pretty well figured out, and we have from the very beginning. And then we have like kind of anchor beats, like, and we did this with Shiloh too, where there's like these like kind of really big moments that like have to happen, and like kind of you have them in order, where you know X has to happen before Y has to happen before, like in order to kind of get you to the end, and then everything that's kind of like an arc in between, we kind of like subdivide into like a big like mini arc, or like a you know basically like stitching in between the arcs. So we, you know, you can kind of see that in season 1, where there's like the arc where it's like the labyrinth arc, and then the what happened after that?
So there's a big announcement after the labyrinth arc.
Right. Well, but that's still kind of stitching. That was like a big moment. That was an important moment. But everything before that and kind of after that even was considered stitching in between that and like the next arc. So it's like we have the labyrinth arc, and then I guess the next arc was it the manor arc? I guess it was pretty much the manor arc. And then the like cellar arc came after that. And then everything in between we kind of view as being like connective tissue. So in a season, we know that we're going to have like a couple side arcs, and then we have like our big anchor points. And then the stitching is kind of where you get to have fun, you know, like that's where you're like, oh, what feels like kind of like we haven't spent enough time there, or like what would be like really satisfying to see. And that's kind of the stuff that we get like a chance to like bob and weave and like kind of like play along the way. It doesn't have to be as like strictly planned out, but you also do have to get through it pretty quick. You can't spend too much time there.
It is nice to have that like I don't know, like the really important beats kind of like planned out pretty meticulously, but there's like room in the middle to kind of be spontaneous and like, you know, fire back and forth and like do kind of like something that feels really fun right now, or like, oh, this missing this thing, just kind of like a little bit more organic and in the moment. Like having both of those things going at the same time, I think is helpful. Yeah. But you don't get off track because you have a track.
You're on the roadmap.
Yeah. And especially in like the case of webcomics, like you need to have every episode end in a way that's going to encourage a reader to want to read the next episode. And they're like, they don't always necessarily have to be like total cliffhangers, but in a way, a cliffhanger, right?
Yeah. I think that's just something that we've gotten better at with just practice. I think it's just been a lot of practice.
I think a lot of it is framing too. Like, I think that as long as something is happening in your story, it's not that hard to find a good cliffhanger. It might not be like, oh my gosh, I need to fast pass right now or anything like that, but it might get some people. Like, I think that there's always a good way to do it, if that makes sense. It's just like you have to believe that something is interesting enough to be a cliffhanger, and then just like present it that way, even if you're like, these are kind of it's a two-parter episode and now it's kind of awkward because we're just sliding into the next thing. But I think that there's always a way to do it. The one thing though that we don't do, and it's like a personal peeve, I guess, and I see it sometimes. I don't want to like call anyone out in particular, but I do see it a lot with the Korean series, is that sometimes they'll do like a big cliffhanger and then completely retcon it in the next episode. And we're like, oh, I can't. It bothers me. It bothers me so much. So yeah, we try really, really hard not to do anything like that, because you just kind of like lose like reader trust doing that, and then none of your cliffhangers feel important after a while.
Yeah, I totally see why they do it, but like as a personal choice, yeah, I would rather the cliffhanger not be like as like life or death, and it's still like pay off in the next episode.
You need to have those be like resolved, obviously, but not in like a ridiculous retconny way, right? And I think that's can definitely be hard to balance.
Yeah.
Like someone wakes up from a dream and you're like, okay. Like, I get it. I completely get it. But I'm also like, it's a little cheap. It's a little cheap. And I think it's fine to do it sometimes. I just think that when it's like, this is like the 6th episode in a row that you pretended something interesting was going to happen and then it didn't. Mm-hmm. That I think that just starts to erode reader trust, and it just makes everything feel like, does any of it matter? Really? Yeah. So we really try not to go there.
Yeah. And I really hate when that happens too. Like as a reader. Yeah. So I'm really glad that you guys go about it in a way where you want to keep your readers engaged, but at the same time you understand like what makes a good story and what it takes to have the plot, go the way it should, and those cliffhangers pay off, right? And I think you guys are really good at doing that for sure.
Thank you. I hope so.
So when you were also thinking of like the story of Nevermore, what were kind of the major themes that you guys were brainstorming, and kind of what did you want readers to take away from the story?
I mean, it's hard to say what we want people to take away from the story, because I don't. One of the things that I really, really like about writing and making a story is seeing how dramatically different people's interpretations of it are. So it's hard to say like that we like have certain aims or want people to take certain things away, because sometimes people take something completely unanticipated away from the story or from a character or from an action. And a lot of times I'm like, that's so interesting, because like they say it and it immediately makes sense to me, but it's like a new perspective that I hadn't even thought about before. Mm-hmm. So we kind of, I've certainly prescribed to this like whole kind of philosophy of like death of the author, where when something is out there and when it's being read by an audience, the audience is like kind of as important to the meaning of the work as the author ever was, kind of becomes something else. So I don't know. I feel like that's That's like a very annoying way to answer your question. I mean, I can talk about the themes that we're passionate about, but I also don't want it to be at the exclusion of what anyone else thinks. And also, I'm not going to be able to list absolutely every single one of the things that we've intended. But I mean, like, there's definitely kind of a feminist edge to things, like just women through history and how like women kind of have to either fight or kind of hide or kind of like become part of the system or completely like spit in the face of it. Like, it's just really interesting, like kind of going into these things that are kind of unfortunately still something that plague us. Like, we like to think that, oh, back in the Victorian times, women had no rights, and now women have far more rights than they had back then. And I'm like, that's not always the case. And not that it's not. We do have more rights, but like, there's also, in a lot of ways, a lot less respect. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just like, time is not like it's not like a flat line where we're always progressing and always progressing. And I just think it's like kind of really interesting bringing up the things that I'm like, they're still plaguing us today, just in like different ways. So there's definitely like a feminist edge to it, especially in how women are constantly called like crazy or insane. Like, every time we've got like a problem or we're upset or like have any kind of complaint, it's like, you're crazy, you're dramatic, you're hysterical. So that's something that we're both like pretty passionate about, not liking. Like, not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Like, there's like only one way to be a woman that's the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's just like, I guess like a lot of commentary on that in general, sexism, feminism, all of that. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
There's also, but I mean, there's also kind of a tinge to it where it's like sanity in general. Like, what is sanity? What is normal even? Is there such thing as normal? Like, I don't think any of the characters in the cast would be someone who you would point at and be like, that's the normal
There's
one.
one normal one. There's one normal one.
Who?
The normal one.
Oh, no, he's not normal.
He's
the most unnormal one. That's the twist. No, there's a character who he's basically like normal guy. Like, his whole personality is how normal he is, and I think he might be the most screwed up. He literally might be the most screwed up of everybody. So yeah, I think like kind of all that stuff. I'm like all the good old emo.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing
tropes.
we keep coming back to is like, the different ways that people operate or try to operate like inside a system or structure that is like on its basis like unjust to everybody to a certain degree. I think that like the different ways that people cope with that and act and retain their identity or don't, I think that's like always just like a really interesting thing to play with and explore. I think that we do that in pretty much everything we make. So
yeah, that one pops up without us.
I think that's just like a natural thing that we just do because it's like, I don't know, we're always thinking about it.
I guess we're always thinking about it.
So that's definitely one. But yeah.
Are there any tropes you guys just hate?
I have a lot.
Oh my god, it's a ton.
Okay, I do. Yeah, this is a trope that I hate. I don't even know. It's like when a female character is almost essayed and then the male love interest swoops in to save her.
That one
gets me every single time. I hate it. I'm sorry. I don't care what story it is.
When it's meant to be like, look how safe he is. He like didn't do that.
He didn't essay her. Like, what? Yeah.
The bar is down here, ladies. Like, what are we doing?
Like, don't use that as a plot device. It pisses me off. Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. On the same token, this is also in you always see this in hetero romances. By the way, we're bisexual, so like we're together. But
no
like,
hate.
No hate.
Yeah.
But the whole like, you should be more careful outside at night. Like, what about like a guy like me? Like, oh, like I might not be able to control myself. I'm like, I'm throwing up. I'm throwing up. I'm gonna go throw up somewhere. This is disgusting. I'm sorry. I can't get into it. I like dark romance. Like, obviously we like dark romance,
yes.
But I'm like, that is repulsive.
It's toxic romance, not dark.
What do you mean you can't control
Sir?
yourself?
What is
Sir.
wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I really don't like that trope
No.
either. I think it's, it does cheapen the story when people use tropes like that or even cliches. It like there are plenty of other ways. Like going back to that trope of the essay, like attempted essay, and then the male lead comes in and saves the main character. It's like there are so many other ways that you could portray the male lead as like a safe person other than that.
Like if he needs to save her for whatever reason, she could be in danger in so many different ways. Like why does it have to be that? Like why is that like that like very serious triggering topic being kind of like I don't know, reduced to this just like plot device? Like I don't know, it drives me crazy.
It also bothers me because it can be done like that sort of subject matter shouldn't be off limits at all. It just shouldn't be there only to forward like a male character's storyline or character, like or make you feel a certain way about him. It should be about her. Like it should be about like overcoming that, or like, like something about the person who's like the victim of that thing, kind of like coming to terms with it. Certainly not.
Yeah, like it's definitely not. I definitely don't think that it should be off limits to be explored. Like
no,
but like just when it's just kind of reduced to a plot device to make the male lead look cool.
Kind of a lot on Webtoon is the and here we'll throw shade. We'll throw shade at gay series too.
Okay.
We're throwing shade. We're hurling shade. No, the like horrible woman, the horrible shrill woman with the tall heels and the red lipstick and the red dress, who's just in the way. She's just in the way. She's in the way of the two men getting together because she's his betrothed. For some reason, she's betrothed and he hates her. Like, and it's always so slut shamey. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Why does it have to be like this? Like, I get, okay, maybe she's in the way, but does she have to be like all tarted up? Like, do you guys have to like, throw strays at people who just like to wear makeup and heels? Like, it's so rude for no reason.
Yeah. With you on that one too. Yeah.
And boy loves a lot, but also again in romance as well.
Oh, constantly, yes. Like the evil ex-girlfriend.
Evil ex.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, like maybe she's got stuff going on. I don't know. Like,
yeah, Ada's kind of one of our characters. Ada, she's kind of a subversion of that, and I think like a lot of people hated her when she first showed up. Like they were like, "Boo, tomato."
Like, we knew,
but like we knew they were going to. But I was like, wow, they really like they
jumped on that.
They took the bait immediately, and we're just like, we hate her. And I think it's changed a lot. Like people really like her now.
People are like pretty split on her, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
I think that's super interesting. But yeah,
that's another small one.
So in drama genre, or just when people add in these characters just for drama's sake or just to provide tension, I feel like it disservices the character, because I'm like, you want to have characters that they all have like depth to them and they all grow in some form or another. Like you get to the end of the series, like the characters that you were introduced to that are part of the plot should have grown in some way, right? And I hate that they'll have these characters that are literally there just to prevent the main ship from getting together, or they're just there to kind of throw in random drama and tension.
And it's like, it's understandable, like if you need kind of like some kind of character to provide conflict or like a plot mover or something, like I totally get that, but like just I don't know, for a character to just remain a plot device for as long as they're in the story is kind of like I don't know, you could have done more. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it always feels a little bit bad.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of them in, like, I'm not throwing shade to any particular webtoon, but the tropes that I am really tired of is like the love triangles, which are more like a love corner. It's not a love triangle, it's a love corner.
You're right. I like that term better.
It is true. And it always does kind of feel like that too. It always feels like the female lead's in the corner and there's like two guys and she's like, why do we do this? Why is this a good thing? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like this is, I'm with you.
And then the other the other stories. I'm just so sick of like the reincarnation or the isekai or the villainous type things where I'm like, I need variety. That's why I love Nevermore so much, is that it's just a breath of fresh air in amongst the sea of,
Yeah.
of originals where I'm just like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
nice.
It's like it's cool, and then it's like there's so many though. Like
I think that there's a reason for it. I think that like I almost think that the Western market of Webtoon almost like pulls against the Korean market sometimes, because I think in Korea, and do you remember there was this moment where there was like an ad that went awry where it's like comics or literature's fun side hustle. Do you remember
Yeah,
this?
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, Webtoon got in a lot of hot water for that, and rightfully so. But they posted it in in the subways of like different
Yeah, I
cities.
remember.
And it's interesting because like looking into what Webtoon is in Korea, they've got like a big market share. Like a lot of people read
Yeah.
them there of all kind of ages and demographics and everything. And it's mostly for commuters. Like it's because there's a lot of commuting. Like people, take trains. We don't really do that in the US as
For some
much.
reason,
Or
yeah.
we should. We don't, but we should. But so our commutes, we pay attention more to like audio stuff, like podcasts and music and things like that. And I think it's more of a visual medium in other places like Korea. So I think that they're like reading these like snack sort of stories. The tropes are actually good. They're on purpose because people, they're like, I can't remember what the heck this was happening in this one from what I was reading yesterday, but there's a Duke of the North and he seems hot, and then there's seems like, whoa, he's hot, so I'm just gonna pick up. And I think that that's like kind of on purpose. I think sometimes we misunderstand it as being like a mistake, or there's so many copies. And I mean, I just don't think it plays well here, because that's not what we all use Webtoons for. Like in the Western market, we like go out of our way, we want to read these stories. And especially here where it's tough to find media that is like indie and like new. So it's like people look to kind of indie comic creators and other indie types of creators for like the new thing, because everything else is like reboots, rehashes, offshoots of this or that or whatever. So it's like this is where we come to get our like new exciting stories. So I think in that way, sometimes like the Korean market is pulling against the Western market on Webtoon, because the Korean market is making stuff specifically that is like snack sized, that people can read on their way to work and stop mid episode and pick up later and still know what's going on. And then in the US, it's like in US, and by kind of virtue of that, all of the Western market, it's much more like, I'm coming here for something new and original. And so I think that it's just this really, really kind of strange phenomena right now.
Yeah, because you have all these imports on Webtoon from Korea, that really play into those very familiar, like you said, snack size stories. Because, and I see it all the time. People will acknowledge, like at the same time, they'll acknowledge, I know it's a recycled plot. I know these are like very like similar characters to another Webtoon, but I eat it up every time.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
always going to be an audience for those type of stories. And I could definitely see like the contrast in audiences of the Western audience and the Eastern audiences. Like they they absorb different stories differently, and they have interest in certain kinds of stories. But I could see at the same time the fatigue that readers in the Western markets have with all of those familiar recycled stories.
Yeah, it seems like, I think the biggest thing I notice is that like the reader who kind of gravitates towards like the Western series, I think that they're a lot more like loyal in terms of if they glom onto a series, they'll like really stick with that series. Like, this is my guy. Like, I'm gonna keep reading it all the way until the end, even if I don't know what's going on anymore. I have to finish it. And then I think that like more the Korean port reader, I think they read a lot more, but are so much more likely to just like forget a series or like pop amongst several series, or come and go from the app too, like spend, you know, a couple weeks like reading Webtoon every single day, and then like go a couple months because they just kind of forgot to pick it up again. And it's like no shade to either side. I just think it's really interesting. I think that they've got two completely different demographics on this app, and I think that they're catering to the one that they know, which is the Korean demographic, like the one that kind of fits the Korean business model. And sometimes I think that the Western market kind of gets a little bit like, it's not like we're ignored. I think that we're just kind of the redheaded stepchild a little bit, where they're like, I don't know what to do with you. And we're like, it's okay, we're vibing. We're just, we're doing so I think it's just kind of interesting. Just not heard
of. Debacle. So I get a lot of questions as I do the podcast. I get people DMing me, how do I start a webtoon? What do I need to think of? What are the most important things? So what would be your guys' advice in both a storytelling aspect and an artistic aspect of like creating a webtoon?
Well, from a storytelling aspect, because you know, I mostly just do the writing, and I'll let you do the art stuff. But like from a storytelling perspective, one thing I see people, I don't see it as much anymore, but for a little while I saw people making up stories specifically to like try and become like an original series. Like I would see people picking up on like popular tropes that are happening right now, or like if there's like a series that's recently done really well, being like, I'm gonna do that. Or you know, like Dan to Dan is really big right now, so maybe someone's
Love
like,
Dan to Dan.
I love it, it's so good.
Awesome.
But it's like someone's like, oh, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna make it webtoon. And I think it's a bad idea. I mean I know that, you know, it's probably worked for some people. But this is the problem, is like if you get a contract doing that, it's never going to feel like your contract, you know, and you're never going to actually be able to do it as well as the person who made the original, because it's just not your thing. It just doesn't mean the same thing to you. So I think that whenever you're starting a new series, you need to really think about like, what do I care about? Like, what do I care about? You don't have to think about, sometimes people say start with a theme, and I'm like, I think that's too big an ask, because like you find themes along the way. Just think about like, what am I really passionate about? What genre am I really passionate about? What do I wish like I could read? I really, really want to see, you know, X, Y, and Z. Why has no one written this before? Well, I'm like, that's you. You're that guy now. You're gonna make it. And I think that's whenever I've seen someone like really flourish, it's because they've done something that's really true to themselves. And I know that's like really, it just sounds like corny to say it.
It's like, that's the core of it though. It's like, if I can add on like a tiny bit,
Absolutely.
I'm basically repeating what you said, but I just like, I think this stands out, or it's just like, if you think of like the last piece of media, or like one of the biggest pieces of media that you've interacted with, engaged with, that you just like loved it so much that it like consumed your every waking thought, and like you loved it so much it like was painful sometimes, you just wanted more so bad. It's like whatever was the thing about that media, it doesn't have to be like, I don't know, it's like not necessarily what it was about or how it looked, it's just like whatever it was that grabbed you, like feed on that, like go from there, that's your seed. And that'll always lead you right.
And it doesn't have to be super specific. It can be something like, I really want to do an ensemble cast that has like a lot of characters and they're all kind of bouncing off of each other in a certain way. Or like, oh, I want to do, I don't know, like a medieval romance, but with a twist. Or like because sometimes this is the other thing, is I see people go too far into the realm of like trying to remake something that they really like.
Right.
And so this is, I just think that this is the same thing as I was saying before. I'm like, you're never going to make it as well as the person who made it makes it, because they're really good at it, because it's their thing.
Yeah.
So I think just like trying to find a way to make something that you really, really care about and it really shines through in your work. It's hard not to feel that like infectious passion when you're seeing somebody work on something that they care about that much. So I know it sounds like kind of, but it is really important. And I think just like going back to your roots sometimes also helps. Like think about what you really, really, really liked when you were 13.
Yeah, like for real though.
For real. It worked.
Go back and rewatch that. Figure out
I feel like I had
about it. Yeah.
I feel like I had the worst taste at 13 though.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. It's the cringiest taste, but that's where passion comes from. It's so important. You have to be willing to be cringe.
Yeah.
You have to.
Okay.
Like one of the things that inspires me, I shouldn't even own up to this. Oh my God. I've owned up to this several times. If anyone's like hung around long enough, they already know this. So.
I already know what it is.
When I was a kid, I really, really liked the Cats musical on VHS.
Yep.
Not the new one.
Not the new one. We don't claim that.
We don't talk about it. I really liked it and watched it over and over and over again, and I was obsessed with it. And I knew all of the cats' names, and I had headcanons before I knew what headcanons were, and I was writing fanfic before I knew what fanfic was. I was like 8. I was like 8 years old. I was so young. And it is funny because it really kind of informed like the way that I put stories together. Because the thing I liked about the Cats musical so much on VHS, you can try this. If you don't believe me, you can try it. But if you look in the background of things that are happening on the screen, you start to notice like little relationships like between like the random extras in the background. And once you're like paying attention, you're like, oh, I think that these two are friends. Oh, I think that these two are dating. Oh, I think that these two hate each other. Like, it's just really interesting. I don't know why I caught on to it so much as a kid. I really did. I got really into it. And now I feel like it really has informed how like we do casts of characters and how they all have these like really complex like webs of relationships with each other. And how like these two like this guy, but this guy hates this one. And this, you know, it feels real. It feels like it's living. And so, yeah, that's maybe the cringiest thing that you could like. Maybe the single cringiest thing in the entire world that you could get caught liking.
And yet,
I got something out of it. I don't know. So,
yeah.
Find the cringe. Follow the cringe and extract it. Extract all of it. And make something. That's my advice.
Yeah.
That's my pitch.
What about you, Kate?
I mean, it's hard. I don't know if I'm like 100% the person to ask about this actually, because like I focus a lot on like I'm a big like art history nerd and stuff. So like,
me too.
What? Oh my god, no kidding! I found one. No, I'm obsessed with art history. So like classical art is like and like gesture drawing is like huge. Like gesture drawing, like warming up with that, like honing your skills, doing that, like that's the way that I improve the fastest. That's helped so much in like fluid poses and like motion. Like that's been huge. But that's like a pretty I don't know, just kind of like nerdy illustrative background thing to say. It's not really like comics or webtoon. I think like as far as I don't know, I think like paneling and pacing is pretty important. It's tough. I would just say like study other comic creators, like manga, webtoons, all of it, like as much as you can, kind of like consume as much of that content and really like try to analyze it and figure out the things that you like about how it's paced. And just practice. I would say like try to vary up your panel sizes. That's like a really like it helps a lot, like way more than you'd think. Try to, I mean, the way that I'm focused on panel a lot right now.
We're thumbnailing it.
We're in thumbnailing stage. So one thing that I found like really helps is kind of like approaching thumbnails like if there's like a scene or a script, like there's this chunk of action or this like beat of like back and forth, and like that chunk of script or like dialogue or interaction, think of that as kind of like its own, like bookend it with something. So it's like maybe it's like two sequences that talk to each other because you want it to feel kind of like peppered back and forth, or maybe it's like a really long fade for a long moment and then like bam bam bam, like a few insets of like, it's just like think of it in chunks, and it's like way easier to kind of like baby steps, you know, like get through the whole thing. And then And I think the other thing, I think like advice is like it's so difficult because it's like, I don't know, there are like so many things that people might need to hear that I might need to
Yeah.
hear. One thing I needed to hear was general to specific is no joke when drawing, and don't like get too in the weeds with details for no reason on every panel. And I still struggle with that sometimes. It's still a little bit overly busy in some of the art, but like focusing more on the shape language and the compositions and how it like feels to like move your eyes down through the scroll is like way more important than a lot of details, or you know, I don't know, just honing in on like really really specific things. So like really really like nailing down the general in your roughs, in your thumbnails, and even expressions in thumbnails and stuff is like so much more important than, you know, the nuts and bolts afterwards. I hope that was that was anything.
No, that's great advice. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, I get hung up on the little details, and it's hard to kind of pull back and be like, okay, wait, what do I want my readers to be focusing on most in this scene, and how can I portray that? And, you know, especially when you have dialogue between characters, it's hard to not get stuck in that talking heads kind of drawing where it's just people in their heads talking. Like, you got to have variety and keep people interested.
Yeah.
And so what I tend to tell people is, I'm like, you know, you could have maybe have your establishing shot of the scene, and then you can get into like, here's where the characters are. You want to establish where they are, right? And then you could have a couple of headshots of them talking, and then break it up maybe with I call them B-roll shots, even though that's not technically the term, where it could be just like a snapshot of the environment around them.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's an intense moment, there's plenty of ways that you can kind of portray emotions that isn't the character's face.
Mm-hmm.
If you could focus on a certain body part, you could focus on maybe a different angle. Like, there's a lot of ways, and I think people should just try and experiment.
Varying up like close shots and far shots too, even if they're in the same position, it really does a world for feeling like the scene is living. One of my favorite things lately, actually, this is pretty recent, that I don't know, I've done it before, but like this is such a weird specific like nerdy thing that nobody can relate to, but like one of my favorite things lately is in talking head scenes, or in just dialogue scenes, I don't know, two characters sitting talking, whatever, is to just like pan way back at like a really like gut punchy moment, like especially with like a really short line, like one or two words or whatever, like whatever that gut punchy moment is, and just have it be like their silhouettes, like just but like pan way back, so it's just like suddenly like you're, I don't know, you're looking at the whole, like both of them,
Yeah.
you can't see what they're thinking. Like that's been one of my, it's just like I can't overuse it, but I've really liked it lately. So I don't know, just finding little things like that and keeping up variety is really important, and just really keeping in mind like the emotional beats. I mean, the emotional core is like the most important thing. Even if your panels are like a little samey, if the expressions are really selling the emotion, it doesn't matter as much, I would say. So yeah, sorry, I don't know. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay, you look like you were gonna say something.
I'm just like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. And I know it can be hard to kind of explain the thought process behind the artistic aspect of making a webcomic. And I think it's just really important for people to understand you're going to learn as you go. You're not going to know everything up front, and it's okay that you don't know everything, and that you're, you know, because it's an unfamiliar medium and there's a lot that goes into it. So I think people should really give themselves grace and just have fun.
Yeah.
You know, like have fun with it. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be stressful or pressure. Like, it's something you should just enjoy doing.
It's also like, just to put two like kind of small things on the end of it, is your first one's probably not going to be very good, which is okay.
Yeah.
Free yourself of the notion that it's going to be your magnum opus. Like, just get through it and understand that, like, you know, you're gonna, ideally you'll look back on it someday and be like, what was I doing? Because it's like, that means that you got really good. So
yeah,
it's okay. You don't need to like spend all this time, you know, trying to make it perfect, trying to make it like how you want it to eventually be, because you get so good at art so fast from just making a comic.
Yeah.
So repeating one panel over and over and over again is not as effective as just doing like 10 episodes and then being like, that was a mess, let me try again, and starting over. That's much more effective use of your time. And then the other thing is, I hear some people say that it's like too late to start a webcomic, or it's too late for it to be successful. And I just want to say that we thought that when we started this in 2012. You always think it's too late, because like 2012 was right on the heels of what I would call like kind of the golden era of web comics, like pre Webtoon, where it was like, you know, everyone had like their own hosted like URL, and there was Hiveworks was really big. And Hiveworks is still, you know, doing stuff, but I mean, like that was kind of the standard back then. And then Webtoon came along, and, you know, debatably there was kind of another like golden era of webcomics. We don't know what's coming next. So like making one right now, you have no idea what's coming down the pipeline. It might be like as big as YouTube in like a couple years to like be a Webtoon creator. You have no idea. So it's like there's no time like the present to start, and there's no point in talking yourself out of it because you think it's too late, because it's just simply not. It's not going to be too late. This is going to keep flourishing and becoming new things over time, and it's just always a good time to start.
Definitely. I totally agree. And I've seen that before. I've seen people like even on Reddit, like in the Webtoon Canvas subreddit, where they're like, oh, I want to start one, but I'm too old. Like some people say, I'm too old to start a webcomic. I'm in my 30s, so why, you know, and it makes me sad.
Yeah,
we're in our 30s.
We're in our 30s. Yeah,
I'm 30. Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah. I knew an artist once, like back in my hometown and stuff, and he didn't start drawing until he was like late 50s. And he was in his 70s at the time that like I sort of like knew him, and he was amazing. He was like one of the most amazing artists I've ever met in person. Like he did these like incredibly intricate like pen drawings. It blew my mind. And it's just like I don't know, if you want to try and do something, like it's really literally never too late to do it. You can get good at something pretty quickly if you just practice a lot.
It's also kind of sick, like coming to comics like in your 30s, because you have a completely kind of like untarnished concept of like what webtoons are, what they can be, and you also have like your own completely like bespoke set of like life experiences by that time. Like so many people who when they start webtoons are like really quite young, like coming straight out of college or even high school. And no shade to anyone like wonderful. That's wonderful. But I'm also like, it's so important to have all like different kind of range of experiences. And you really, there's certain things that you just can't replace with reading about them in a book. Like, you know, if you've lived these experiences, like no one's going to be able to make a comic that reflects those experiences better than you. So it's like,
go make art.
I would be like, please definitely do make comics if you're in your 30s. I think it's like really, really important to get all of those voices in there. And I'm also in my 30s, and I want to read comics by people who are in their 30s. So
yeah.
I
think it's funny because most like published author or like published webcomic creators that I talk to most of them are in their late 20s or like early 30s. And it makes sense. Like they have a lot more experience, and there are some that are like in their early 20s that I'm just blown away by their talent and their storytelling abilities. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and also just the dedication. I don't think I could have done an episode a week when I was like 21, 22.
It's really hard. I think it started when we were 26, 27.
What started
doing Webtoon?
Like originals? Yes, something like that. Yeah, it was like
that was hard. That was
really hard. It was hard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to be fair, we were pretty diligent when we were younger too. But yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't ever want to say this to deter people from starting a webcomic, but I think sometimes they might underestimate just the amount of work it does take, because not only are you a storyteller, you're an artist, and there's just a lot of different components with
Yeah.
both aspects of it, right?
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, it's like a huge amount of work, but it's all the more fulfilling for it. It's all the more fun. There's just more to do. That, I don't know. It's just great. It's super rewarding. Um, and if you can, I mean, if you're an artist and you can find a writer who you really vibe with, I would like put my green check mark on that any day. I think it's so awesome working with the
Hmm.
writer. And I mean, if you can manage it, if you can find a writer and you guys just really jive and you want to make something together, I would say go for it. I mean, I can't imagine doing it any other way, but yeah. And that, it does cut the workload down. It's not like a lot, so
It's also a lot of like left brain, right brain stuff. I think that you could be like an incredibly talented writer and incredibly talented artist, but it's hard to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's and so many people can. It's crazy, and I also think that like if you have a little more time, it's like you're able to like kind of swap from one to the other on a week to week basis. I think it's really hard to like swap from kind of that left brain of like I need to like plan this out, I need to write it, I need to figure out the dialogue, I need to choreograph like where everyone is like going to be in space, like, and then swap to the like, okay, how do I panel it, how do I make it like look really really good, and then swap back to the left brain being like, does this read, is this clear? And I feel like we kind of are that to each other, like we're both like, you're very logical and I can be very creative, but like I think that like I kind of during our what's the word I'm looking for?
What, like collaboration?
Collaboration, whatever. Our collaboration, our process, right? I think I kind of operate more as like the left brain, and
sure.
Flynn is more
just
the
having
right
like
brain.
Someone as a sounding board and someone as like a I don't know, just a vibe checker. Like,
and
it's huge.
It's nice to be able to just be like I don't have to worry about if this looks good. I just have to worry about if it reads logically. And like I hope vice versa for you. It's like I just have to worry. I don't have to think about if it makes sense. Just if it looks good. So it really helps being in a duo if it's possible for you.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people be posting on like the Webtoon subreddit that either they're an artist looking to work with a writer or they're a writer looking to work with an artist. And I always wonder, I'm like, how does that dynamic play out? How is,
It's so tough because I feel like it has to be a friend. I think you have to be friends with somebody before you start on something like this. Because I see a lot of people who are like, I am a writer and I want someone to draw my idea. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Unless you want to pay somebody, you can freelance. Like you can hire an artist to make your idea. That's something you can do. And then you retain your IP, but you have to pay them up front for that. If you're going to do like a collaboration, it's your idea, the both of your idea. And one of you is just working on kind of the script and one of you is working on the art, but like you are equal contributors to the idea. Like that's, I mean, Kate and I we're both storytellers. I write the script and Kate does the art, but like Nevermore is completely made by the two of us together. Like I don't fly off the handle and just decide they're going to go over here. They're going to like, that's not something that happens. Like we collaborate, but absolutely every single storyline, story beat, character trait, everything that happens, and we both
we both like throw things into the pot and go on long walks and turn it over and over and over.
Yes,
and
the long walks.
Very long walks. Sometimes we go walking for like 4 hours in a day. But yeah, no, it's
when we don't know what is happening in an episode, we have this habit of going and getting lost in the woods, and we're not allowed to come out of the woods until we know what's happening in the episode.
That's really cute.
So we just go to a park and we just kind of wander around until we're satisfied that we have a solution. Which sometimes we get home and then we're like, no, we don't.
Yeah, I know. We're at a perfect point, like somewhere we can start an outline from, for sure. And then we do the outline, and then we go for another walk and like turn it over and we can edit the outline. Yeah, so it's I would say like that's fighting if you're collaborating with somebody. making sure that you're friends and equal partners is huge, unless, you know, it's a business thing.
Yeah, no one wants to just draw someone else's story for free. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's not something that should be expected.
Mm-mm.
And I think that that's like the big problem I see with like people who are coming in being like, I want to collaborate. I have a story. Here's the script idea. I'm like, no.
Yeah, or like people like artists who are like worried about losing creative control when working with a writer. I think that's like a big thing too, and like I relate to that a lot. But if you find the right person, it's really not like that, and it's wonderful. It's like so much better than working alone, truly.
Yeah. What are some things that you guys wish you knew in the beginning, now that you've gone so long collaborating, creating webtoons?
That's interesting. Maybe like chill out. Maybe, like, well, we don't though.
No, we don't. I was about to say, like, I don't actually think. I guess, you know, the thing that I would have wanted to know.
I have one. Yeah, you tell, and then I have one.
I was about to say it, but I think I might be wrong, because I'm like, I think the thing I might have wanted to tell myself when we were starting is that it's like you're gonna do it, okay? Like, you're gonna, like, because we had a lot of hard times where we were just like, what are we doing? Because like we're having fun, but sometimes you feel like you're posting to the void, especially for like our first 2 years. I don't even think anybody read anything that we made. We were just posting it. We were just keeping each other entertained. We were really just making stuff for each other. So it's like, it would have been nice to know back then that it's like, keep at it. You're going somewhere, and it's going to come to fruition at some point or another. And that would have been nice. But I think not knowing actually is what got us to where we are. Like, you know, it's about the journey kind of. And I think, the not knowing and the stumbling around and learning the hard way, I don't think we'd be the same creators if we didn't do that.
That's true. I think you're right about that.
What were you going to say?
Be more self-indulgent.
That's okay. No, that's true. That's actually really true. In the beginning we were very like, oh, it's too on the nose. It's too much. We can't do that.
We were, we felt like we had to be original about every single little thing. We couldn't go the expected route. I'm like, stop it. Like, if it's fun, you can just do it sometimes.
We fell into the trap of like trope bad.
Yeah, or they're not. They're not bad.
No, you need to use them. Like, they're tools. Like, you need to like know when to use them, how to use them,
which ones you like, and like how to subvert. When you can subvert, you can just do a trope that you like. It's okay. Like, just calm down.
Just as a treat.
Be more self-indulgent, because I think that's like something that like I learned hard, because I was a very true artist in the beginning. I was very like,
I think we both were.
Yeah. But like allowing yourself to be more self-indulgent and just finding like the fun and the joy, like that's so huge. And I don't know why that was like, I felt like that couldn't, for it to be like good art, it couldn't have that. It's just,
it couldn't be fun.
Yeah, because then it's easy, and it's just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I don't know, just like that joy, that like pure, just like, oh, I love this thing so much, even if it's like silly, even if it's like a little cringy, like whatever it is. But if it's just like, if it speaks to your heart, if it speaks to your soul, just do it. Like, just allow yourself to be self-indulgent. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years. I'm so glad that I learned it.
Cringe is the secret sauce. Cringe is
amazing. Yeah. I would agree. I feel the same. I wish, when I first started, I wish I learned how to not be a perfectionist, because I'm still very much a perfectionist, and it sounds like you guys are too.
Yes. We struggle with the same affliction. Yes.
But it's like, you want to make the best thing possible, and you want people to enjoy the story, and it's like, when you get more eyes on something, it's hard to not feel that pressure, right?
Absolutely. That's hard too. It's like balancing kind of like, oh, if I do this like self-indulgent thing, will it be, because I do think there's like some weird connection between like, well, it can't be like as good as it could be if I'm enjoying myself to the most at the same time. And it's like, not like, it really can. I think that is how it gets to be like the best that it could be, is if you're just following what's joyful for you. And like, of course, like, being a perfectionist sometimes helps. Sometimes.
It has its benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly does. I think in my case, it kind of just slows me down, you know. So
I feel that, yeah. I feel that for sure.
Good parts about it, but yeah, it's like the kind of thing I think you have to like keep it in check for sure. Which we don't know how to do that either. I got no advice on that front.
We're trying, yeah. But yeah, I feel basically, yeah, slowing you down. Yeah, it definitely slows us down from time, like not from time to time, always every week. Yeah.
It's a hard balance. It really is. And you just you do your best, and I feel like if there's anybody who is struggling or isn't happy, like if they are working on the webcomic and they're not happy with it, I feel like just give yourself grace and just be proud that you're actually just making a webcomic because it is so much work.
Oh, remembering to be proud of your work is also, you're totally right. That's another thing that it's like, you have to keep reminding yourselves to do that. And when we do, it's great. It's like, celebrate it. Like, really congratulate yourself. This is really hard. Like, you've done a lot of, like, it's like, I think, yeah, creatives constantly forget to do that as well.
Also, sometimes you just gotta get through it. Sometimes, because like I run into that with script a lot too, where sometimes I'm like, I don't know what this line should be. I don't know. And I'm like fine tuning this line over and over and over again. And at a certain point, you're like,
move on.
It's just going to be like, just on purpose, just put something there that you're like, I'm going to change that later. I don't give a shit. Like, and just keep going and be like, I'll circle back. Cause like, you can't just stay in that spot. And I think that that's true even of episodes, even of finished episodes. Sometimes you just got to be like, yep, that's just what this episode's going to be like. It's just going to be like that. I'm going to post it and then I'm not going to think too much about it. Like, sometimes the only way out is through, for sure.
Yep. So let's get into our fan questions. I know you guys had so many.
Yeah, I think we got like 900 on the story that we posted.
That's absolutely insane. Oh my goodness.
I know that it's. I don't even know.
We're like, okay, all right.
I was touched, impressed, slightly scared.
I do think too. When are they going to kiss?
Yeah, so we could just say it. We answered that.
So yeah, there's that one.
Okay, so our first fan question is, what would be your specters if you were Nevermore students?
You gotta go.
I have been on record saying this. I don't know what the name of this would be, but I really like those ghosts that kind of skitter around on the ceiling. I think that would be a fun one to be. I think that'd be really fun. A little ceiling crawler that just kind of scuttles around and chases people around on the ceiling.
Amazing.
I think that would be a good one.
It's a vibe. It's feral energy.
Yeah, I think it would be really scary, like in a good way. You get to see a lot of really scared people, and I feel like that would be fun as a ghost.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think I don't have a name for this one either. It's just ghost lore. This is actually great because like I don't think we can use these because they don't have like bespoke names. So there's like it's the ghost that like peeks around corners and then just like corner and then like, it's not there when you get there.
Like every creepy TikTok ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
TikTok scary TikTok ghost where it just like peeks around corner.
You're so nosy. Always peeking in on
like,
people.
I'm curious, but like don't look at me.
Don't look at me. I like that you're like, I'm back here, I'm over here, don't look at me, and I'm like, what's up?
You're just like upside down on the ceiling and crawling.
Doing gymnastics and stuff.
Yeah. Amazing. Our next fan question, what has been each of your favorite moments so far in the story?
That's such a good one.
It is a good one. It's hard. It's really hard.
I have a few.
Yeah.
I think the bell tower scene was really good. I'm pretty proud of that.
It was really pretty.
It had amazing music with it. From
LA
if I can drop just plug right here is LA Soundtracks on Spotify. Does all of our music for Nevermore. Incredible.
ELE Soundtracks.
Yeah, incredible.
Awesome.
I love that track, and I really liked how that scene in that episode played out a lot.
Yeah,
I would say that one. Yeah, I have a few, but that one stands out. I really liked the bell tower scene.
Yeah, I really liked all of Annabelle's flashbacks. Kind of right after that, actually. not all of them. I guess it was like a 3-episode long kind of like set of flashbacks for hers that ended with Lenore coming back after Annabelle thought she was dead as Leo. I really like that episode, especially because Annabelle's dress in that episode is like my favorite one. So
my favorite one too. I like that one.
pretty good. I like it.
It turned out.
So yeah, I think that's my favorite one too. I think the tough question because my first thoughts were stuff that's coming up that we haven't posted yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ask us in a year or two.
Even a couple months. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Our next fan question is, how long does each episode take?
That's also like kind of hard to answer because it's like it takes the week and then we get back into it the week that it's going up.
That's okay. That's also a lie though, because it does take a week sometimes. And sometimes it takes more than a week.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes so I think that like kind of the coming up with the episode and like working on the outline and working on the script, that all kind of happens like before we even get on thumbnails. And that usually takes a long time because that's the conceptual stuff is actually the hardest part. So that takes a long time. I'm going to say that that's like a whole day on its own, usually, maybe even a little bit more. And then thumbnails will take like a day and a half or 2 even.
Yeah.
And then
Inks will take 2.
Inks take
usually.
2. And then
renders is 2.
Renders is 2.
Yeah, 2.
And that counts like lettering and everything at the end. So
hours
where are we at? How many is it?
6 days, 7
that's
days.
7. I think that's 7.
Right on the dot. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Hours wise, easily 60 hours a week each.
At least. Oh yeah, each. Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get out much.
I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, Nevermore is beautiful, and I can just see like how much work it does take to create something just so amazing. Our last fan question is, if you were in Nevermore, what would you choose as your final meals?
I know mine.
All right.
Mine's embarrassing because I've thought about this a lot. Just like last meal in general. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I have to say this. I'm a really adventurous eater. My last meal would be super boring.
She is a really adventurous eater.
I'll eat anything. I'm super adventurous eater. Okay.
Love it.
But my last meal, it's just going to be steak and a baked potato and a Long Island iced tea.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a good one.
That's it.
It's good. It's solid.
That's all I want.
I think if I've like got 2, but like no, I'm gonna go with the one. I'm just gonna go with. I'm committing. Just a pile of king crab legs and butter. That's it. That's for. I guess if I had a drink, champagne or prosecco or something. Because I'm like, listen, if I'm gonna have my last meal, it better be something that I can't have on a regular weeknight. I'm a Taurus. I can't help it.
Incredible. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I had such a good time talking about Nevermore and getting to know you guys, and it was awesome. Thank you. Okay, guys, I will include all of your links in our show notes. You can go follow them on Instagram at REDNFLYNN. You can go read Nevermore and Shiloh on Webtoon. So if you found this podcast entertaining or informative, give us a like, give us a follow. You can find us on our socials at the Webtoon Wave. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube and watch our videos. You can keep up with us on Instagram, get all news and updates on future guests and cool Webtoon content. So stay creative, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time.